Inflation for millennials and Gen Z population is going through the roof. And what we're worried about is how they're going to handle this inflation. Now, when you compare it to baby boomers and the Gen X population, we're seeing a difference between 8.5% for the Gen X population and baby boomers of natural inflation to 11% inflation for millennials and Gen Z. What is the variance? And so I want to go through with you guys and explain to you exactly what the variance and the variables are between the millennials, the Gen X, the Gen Zs, and the baby boomers. And so as we know, we've all experienced hyperinflation over the last couple years. Since the pandemic, we've seen prices go through the roof. Now, we're at a 40-year high right now, and so understanding where people and placements are very important. If you're a real estate investor, you want to understand what your demographics are and who's being affected, what their income levels are, and who to market to, this video is extremely important. Because one of the big things is I go back in and I try to get non-biased information. So we're utilizing Redfin today, and we're also using the U.S. Bureau of Labor Stats. And so everything is coming from the Consumer Price Index and everything that we're quoting here to you guys today. So this is research that was done to be able to find out who was being affected the greatest by everything that's happening right now in this inflationary market that we're living in. And why is there such a big variable between the Gen X and the baby boomer population and the Gen Z and millennial population? Why is there a separation that's over 3% variables between the two? And one of the big things is how they live. So when we went in and we started doing some research, one of the big things that we found out is that millennials and Gen Zs, they spend about a quarter, 1/4 of their income on housing. And the reason for this is because the Gen Z population and the millennials, less than 25% of them own their own homes. So they're paying rents. And with rent inflation going up year over year, we're seeing numbers that are astronomical. So one of the big variables is that year over year, this past year, 2021, moving into 2022, we saw about a 13.5% rent spike for renters, being the younger generation, being the Gen Z and the millennials. Now, what we've seen over the last 2 years, pre-pandemic, we've seen a 25% increase in rent rates. So when we're talking about the Gen Z and the Gen Z and the millennials, we're sitting back, and mass majority of them are absorbing these massive inflationary rates due to rents. Because when you take a look at the baby boomers, over 80% of baby boomers own their own homes. And when you take a look at the Gen X population, over 70% of the Gen X population owns their own homes as well. So they haven't been affected by the rental increases that are happening nationally right now. And so the separation really comes in housing, because when you look at it based on a breakdown of numbers and you take a look at the let's take a look specifically at the Gen Z population. They spend 1/4 of their income on rent. The average Gen Z is making about $41,000 a year. You know what's funny is that when I got out of college, the highest paying bachelor's degree you could get was $42,000 a year. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was over $25,000 a year over the national average of median income. So we've come a long way since the early 90s. But the Gen Z population, average annual income, $41,000 a year, a quarter of that is spent on just rent alone. 13% of which is spent on food and 7% on fuel. Now, at the end of the year, a Gen Z should expect to retain about 2% of their entire annual income, which is approximately $766. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 365 days a year, that means that every day you could spend approximately $2 and some change going to a movie and going out for entertainment. You have nothing left of expendable income at the end of the year. Now, for you millennials, you're doing a lot better, because you're coming in at about a 26% retention of income at the end of the year. So you're able to retain about $21,000 of retained income at the end of your year. So millennials are doing better than the Gen Z population. The Gen Z population being in the age right now of 18 to 25 years of age. So for those of you guys in excess of 18 to 25 years of age, just remember, go back to 18 to 25. Now, I wasn't really financially viable in anything I was doing till about the age of 23. And so by that age, we were making migrations towards large profits. But I'll tell you, I was one of very few. And if you take a look at your peers at that age, most of them are just living anyways. But we have to get them migrating towards living better. And so when we look at the millennials, these folks are between the ages of 26 years old and 41 years of age. And so now we're moving into the mass majority of our median working class professionals, and you're giving them an average of about $21,000 to $22,000 a year in income that's left over for entertainment, travel, leisure, and stuff that they can do for life. So when we take a look at this as typical Americans, I am excited to be in the Gen X population, but I'll tell you guys that inflation is real and it is being affected. Now, how do you overcome this? Well, I can't fix inflation and I can't fix what's happened with rents, but what I can do is I can partake in affordable housing to be able to put Gen Z and millennials in housing that makes sense for them. If these folks aren't going to be buying homes anytime soon, and we're going to be putting the Gen Z and millennials in apartments, and they're the renters nation, one of the big things is it's going to become harder and harder and harder if inflation continues for the Gen Z population to ever buy a home. And so this is their best opportunity is right now during this recessionary market. And so remember that where there's mass destruction in economics, there's opportunity. And so when there's blood in the water, there's opportunity for investors. And so if you are an end user and you're not an investor, this may be a great time to learn how to become an investor, even if it's nothing more than a personal standpoint on investing, to be able to deploy your money into real estate and long-term holdings that are going to be cash producing for you over the course of time. Real estate being one of the largest money makers of millionaires than anything else in history. So for you millennials, for you Gen Zs, invest in real estate. But if you can't, we're going to come up with a solution for you. We're going to come in, we're working right now every day, and we have been for the last 4 years, on affordable housing models to bring you guys Class A product that we can rent at Class B prices. Reducing rents where maybe you're not spending a quarter of your income, but maybe you're only spending 1/7 or 1/5 of your income on rent as opposed to 1/4 of it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, affordable housing is very important. We're taking out all the amenities out of these apartments that we're building nationwide. We're giving them a respectful, beautiful place to live, but we're doing it at a rate and a price that they can afford. And so when you find a problem so massive, and housing right now is a massive, massive, massive issue, as we take a look and we underwrite what Redfin is doing, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Stats, one of the big things is how do we fix this problem? A mentor of mine told me once, when you can find a solution to a massive problem, you'll amass fortunes bigger than anything you can ever imagine in life. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're amassing fortunes because we're solving a problem for housing. But I can't do it alone. I can only build so many of these. One little apartment complex, ladies and gentlemen, is $80 million, $70 million. There is no lack of money in the world, and there is no lack of opportunity. All there is the lack of willingness to learn and work ethic to go in and adapt and move forward to take advantage of opportunities that lie in the housing market right now. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're a millennial, you're a Gen Z, there's opportunity for you. I'm going to put a link below where you can work with me and my team to teach you guys how to take advantage of affordable housing and how to overcome what's happening currently in the market with the millennials and Gen Z population to be able to afford them the opportunity to buy a home, just like the American dream over the course of time, invest in real estate, invest in assets, and be able to go out and compound their success.